founding Pickup, you were the chief operating officer, Prolific Interactive. So you helped build apps for some big name health and wellness brands, including like SoulCycle, Abercrombie & Fitch, TV12, American Express. How did that help in, leading your company today?
That's a great question, and there is actually a direct tie. So in 2010, I joined two amazing humans, Bobak Amamian and Eric Weber. They actually played baseball together at a place called Quinnipiac in Connecticut. And they had started this agency in Connecticut, moved it to New York, Dumbo, Brooklyn, before Dumbo was very cool. And if you go to Dumbo now, it's incredibly cool. There's a Dumbo house and all sorts of things. What they were doing is they were building apps. They were a digital agency in New York, right, which is a really difficult place to compete. And what we decided to focus on was building apps for companies that actually drove conversions as opposed to building marketing-centric apps. And so what that meant was, how do you get into the world of retail and fintech, and how do you get into health and wellness? We were fortunate to be able to build the first iteration of Rent the Runway and then design Lululemon's app. Eventually building everything from SoulCycle, who we built and maintained for a very long time, up to TV12 and Abercrombie, Gap, Old Navy, etc. Like you name it. And a lot of those were actually Columbus based, which brought me back to Ohio State a couple of times. But the mentality that we always had, though, was you've got to be user centric, and that even might mean that your user is the platform user, not the end consumer, right? But you always have to build technology that's user-centric. You have to hire incredibly talented people that actually care about what they're doing. You have to treat people like humans. And when working with these large brands, you need to be able to show and not just tell what it is that you're going to do. So that means prototyping and designing and showing things like, how is this actually going to work? And what will the outputs be? And so we just learned a ton there. I mean, we were young when we got into it. 2010, I was a couple of years out of school. They had done it straight out of school. And so we were just trying to figure it out. And we did. We did a good job. We didn't figure much out, but we figured out enough to build it up to 125 people. We had 80 people in Brooklyn. We had 30 out in San Francisco. We had a group down in Durham, North Carolina. And then ultimately the company was acquired or acqui-hired by WeWork in 2019.
Great. So when you're a founder, you take on a lot of responsibility, but you also have to be comfortable sharing some of that with other team members. So are you a good delegator, or what advice do you have for other leaders?
I've gotten better. It's something I've worked on. Like, it's so hard, but I'm definitely understanding what I'm not good at. And I'm starting to get a pretty clear idea of what I'm more effective at. One thing that I fundamentally believe, and everybody always says, you're the most successful leader when you're like the dumbest person in the room, or whatever the right, surround yourself with smart people, I guess, is a nicer way of saying that. I do know what I don't know. And so I've tried very hard to surround myself with people that know other things. And there's no point in me trying to do something that someone is better at. I should instead sit back and learn, and then test and see if I'm any good at it. And if I'm good at it, then I can work with them, but I should never take it away from them. And so I've gotten better at delegating, and I've been fortunate to be able to bring on some people that were contractors for a little while that ultimately ended up being full-time employees. And I've found, business partners in them, and we've been able to really make things happen fast. And that's really the stage we're at.
Yeah, and it takes a level of humbleness, I think, to be able to do that, but also as you're growing something that's your own and your baby, and, whether it's a couple of you or whatnot, I think it is really hard to relinquish that, because and there's just so much more control or excitement around what is your vision, and it's sometimes also hard to articulate. So it's great that you can work on that. I think as leaders, we're always trying to figure out where our weaknesses, where our strengths, and how can we do more delegation and trust those leaders. So when making those right hires, I think it's critical, right? And you have those defined roles. It's so important as you build out your company. What have you defined as those specific roles to make sure those right people are in place as you grow in the company?
So what are the actual roles themselves?
Yeah. Like, what do you think are the most, like, I guess, when you're making those right hires, why do you feel like having those defined roles is so important, especially as you're figuring out what's your weakness, what's your strength, and really filling in those gaps?
A lot of it is testing and learning, right? And that's why some of the best people that we've brought on started out as contractors and ultimately have become full-time employees, right? Others, we like a couple of the people that I brought on, I was pitching, right? Like my head of content, Dave Scipione, he's amazing. He ran social at Sports Illustrated. Him and Jeff Carrillo, who's also on the team, ran the Team Streams app at Bleacher Report. And then most recently, they were at The Athletic last year. They ran the NFL draft while there. I was pitching Dave in February last year to try and embed this in The Athletic. And he loved it, right? And he's not somebody who like loves new technology, but he loved it. And a month and a half later, due to the pandemic, The Athletic had cuts and they laid off his whole team. And we have now hired the majority of that team. And that I don't do sports content, and I'll never understand how they do sports content, right? And so that was like a very clear gap in our business, that because we just, through the power of networking and through the power of staying consistent and talking to people and staying on people's minds, and then and developing relationships that ultimately allow you to update people in a not in like a, hey, look at what I'm doing, but more in like a, hey, check this out, what do you think, right? Asking for feedback. It's enabled us to bring on a bunch of people and fill the roles that we just have gaps for. Also, I'm not writing a script that allows us to do any natural language processing anytime soon, even though we need to do that. I'm not building WordPress plugins. I'm not doing any of that stuff. So we've had to hire incredible technology people as well. And what's super cool about the team that we've put together, there's 10 of us now. This is not anyone's first ride. Like, a lot of people have been through startups that have failed, have been through startups that have gone very well and have gone public or have sold or whatever it might be. And so everybody's kind of like in that same place in their career where they're not like, what do I do? They're like, this is what I do. How can I get better? And that just makes the team really strong.
Yeah. So it sounds like everyone's fueled by a passion, a common interest, and it's just something everyone's really excited about. So with looking at the future of Pickup, what growth opportunities do you see? Because you're really in the beginning stages, but I know you shared one exciting change for us that's upcoming, but what else do you see coming up?
We're really at that point where we're ready to scale. And so we'll likely go back out and fundraise in the next couple of months. And the reason for that fundraise will be to scale to multiple sports, to build the team out, to make the technology more automated, because we've kind of figured out how to make it work. And now we know we can make it work at 10 or 100x. And so we're getting close to that time where, we just put our foot down and grow. And I'm excited for it.
Yeah, it'll be exciting to see what happens and watch you grow. And excited. I'm not the best better, but maybe I'll be able to read the content and be able to make some better picks too.